Hi, I'm Ben, and this is We're Done Pretending, a Reflective Rebels podcast. If your days define you instead of the other way around, if you're doing everything for everyone else whilst drifting through your own existence, then this is for you. Today, with me on the sofa is someone who's putting down their mask to share what's actually happening in their life. Not the polished LinkedIn version, but the honest truth about struggle and joy and mess and meaning. By listening, I hope you'll feel less alone in whatever you're going through. Maybe learn something about yourself and find the courage to make changes that feel good. Because we want more than just coping. We want a life that feels like ours. Let's listen to a fellow human. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So because you've listened to a few of these, that I always start with a question this might be a little unexpected.
Okay.
And I wondered if you could describe your perfect Sunday.
Oh, perfect Sunday. So a little bit of a later start, but when I say later start, I'm talking like 8 o'clock. So it's not too much later, but we've got kids in the house. It's a parent later. So getting up at 8 o'clock, pancakes with the kids is always a firm favourite in our house. And then I'm a person of faith, so I go to church on a Sunday morning. So going to church and spending a little bit of time in my community is nice. And then coming home, roast dinner on the go. If I've been up early enough, there'll be a joint in the oven, which will be very nice. And then it's just family time, a dog walk, kids in bed at a decent time, and then just the opportunity to sit and cuddle up on the sofa and have some quiet space. That's the perfect Sunday for me. I'm quite easily pleased.
That sounds absolutely glorious. How often does that happen?
Not often. So we're a blended household. So that means that we've come together a bit later in life and we've brought children with us from previous relationships. So on Sunday afternoons, my partner's often travelling with his son. So it's really rare, actually, that happens. Sometimes it's just me cuddled up on the sofa by myself on a Sunday evening, which don't tell him, but sometimes that's also really nice.
Yeah, solitude.
Solitude
nice.
can be lovely as well.
Yeah. I've got some very important follow-up questions, starting with pancake toppings.
Oh, so we're a real mixed household. So we've got one's Nutella.
Yeah.
I'm maple syrup.
Yeah.
We've got one who's butter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know,
That's
weird.
a bit weird.
Yeah. And then Biscoff sauce.
Yeah,
so,
I think we're fairly similar. Just throw lemon and sugar in there. We've definitely got Nutella, definitely Biscoff. None of us are putting butter on them. Quite French.
Yeah, that's my son. He's open to experimenting with weird combinations of food. We went on holiday this summer and I dared him to he was being the big man and he was like, oh, I could put Biscoff on anything. So I was like, put it on pizza. And he was like, yeah, I would. So we went out for dinner that night and I knew he was going to order pizza. So I took the Biscoff in my handbags. We got into the restaurant and I was like, go on then. And he did. And he was like, oh, it's lovely. So he's definitely up for some quirky combinations.
Mad.
Yeah, very much.
Remind me not to eat out with you and dare myself to eat anything.
Yeah, because I'll remember. It's about the only thing I'll remember, but I'll remember
But you remember the strange little dare I promised I would do.
Yeah.
So you mentioned church as well.
Yeah.
Has faith always been part of your life, or is that something that you've come to later, or how did that kind of come about?
It's always been part of my life. I was raised Catholic.
Yeah.
And I went to church when I was a kid because mum took me to church when I was a kid. So it was just like something that was normal. And then in my teens, I kind of didn't get the point. So I kind of stepped away from my faith at that point, but always kept touch with it because if I was ever at home, we would go with my mum because my mum likes us to go, and we would go at Easter and Christmas and that kind of thing. But it didn't really mean anything to me. And then when my son was born, I started going back to church because I felt like there was something in the community of that space that was kind of calling me back with him. So I had him baptized Catholic and started to raise him. And then I kind of started to question myself, maybe only 2 years ago, where I started to think, I don't even really know what it means. I'm kind of in this faith. By that point, I was going to church every week again. Yeah. I thought, I stand here it feels a bit like I'm cattle. We're all saying the same stuff, but I don't really know that I know what it means. So I have been doing a lot more exploration with my faith and trying to connect with other people of faith and pick apart the bits that I feel are congruent with my values and the bit that feel like a bit more of a challenge, which is tough because my mum always says to me, you can't pick and choose. And I'm like, well, can I? I know what I think my God believes in and the things that kind of I stand for in that faith. And that's about being a decent human being to other people and being loving and caring and trying to stay away from judgment. It's not my place to judge people. It's just my place to love and support and help people grow. And so now I'm actually studying the Catechism, which is a document that was written to help people understand the Bible. And me and my mum are doing it together, which is lovely. So it's a 2-year course and we're doing all this new learning. And it's only at this age that I finally feel like I maybe get it a little bit and I really feel it now. And there's a real sense of peace and quiet and gratitude that comes with that. So I feel really, really grateful to have found my faith in the way that I have now, because it now feels like I'm living my faith rather than just slapping a label on and going,
painting by numbers.
I'm a Catholic. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's how it felt, I think, before.
You said that when your son was born, you felt something drawing you back. They're not your exact words, but do you know what that feeling was? What was a sense of what happened to kind of create that set of circumstances?
Such a great question. As I sit here now, I would say to you, I was called back.
Yeah.
That I was pulled back in. But I don't really know how to quantify that other than that. And that's not very scientific. And I'm actually quite a factual person. I like to dig into as much as possible the facts of things. So the learning of the faith
spiritual calling is quite contradictory to that.
It is. And I'm always trying to reconcile within myself, kind of what feels like fact and how close can I get it to facts. And I appreciate that some people just can't see any kind of crossover between the two. And that's cool. That's okay. Because I don't need anybody else to feel or understand the way that I feel about it. But that calling, I suppose, part of it was probably pulling me back into my faith. Part of it was probably, when I was a kid, I have really fond memories of my community in church. And I think I wanted him to have the experience of that, of always having a community around him. And I think probably the third element is it's lonely being a new mum. And it was somewhere where I could go. And there's a lot of judgment that comes with being a parent. And I can't speak about the judgment that comes with being a dad because I'm not one. But the judgment that comes with being a new mum is so much, and everybody thinks they know the right way to do something or to tell you how to do something. And I think I was just really craving a space where nobody was judging me and where I could kind of just be really supported. So it was probably a bit of a combination of all that, I think. I'm grateful for it, though.
Yeah. Not to sort of pick at your insecurities.
No, go for it.
But those judgments that you felt as a new mom, what were those thought patterns or feelings or things that people said to you that made you feel?
Okay. So I think they tapped into insecurities that were always there. I've always done a really good job of masking that up until a point where I affectionately refer to it as my mini breakdown that came when he was about 3 years old.
We'll come back to that one then.
We can come back. We can circle around back to that one.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. Oh, chapter 22, it feels like. And I think that the judgment at that stage felt very much like I wasn't doing things right. I wasn't making the right decisions. I think, if I'm really honest as well, there was a bit about not knowing it all. I don't think I was brave enough at that stage to admit that I didn't know things. And And I also didn't know how to advocate for myself very well. So there were certain people who would tell me there were certain things I had to do. So, for example, Charlie went straight into his own bedroom. He never slept in my room at all. And I felt peer pressure from other people who had done that beforehand, who kind of told me that was the right way to do it. And it was cool. I mean, he slept like you wouldn't believe from day dot. So
yeah,
do you know what?
Part of me that's jealous.
Yeah.
Emily's still in our room and she's 5.
Oh, wow.
She does have her own room, but a lot of the time she's in ours.
Yeah, well, clearly is better in yours. There's company in yours. So there were some really good things that came from that. But I do feel like I made choices because they were choices to please other people, that rather than what I would have wanted to do as a parent. And that's left me with a little bit of feeling of guilt with some things about some stuff. But he's cool and he's all right and he's getting on okay.
Yeah, that's parenthood, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm never going to get everything right.
Guilt with us.
Yeah. And can I swear
on this?
Because I was going to say, when I remember when I was pregnant, a friend sat me down and she said to me, okay, I need to, not only are you going to give birth to this, it's the best piece of advice I've ever had. Not only are you going to give birth to this baby, but you're also going to give birth to the big shitty stick of motherhood that you're going to beat yourself with on a regular basis. She was like, and you need to remember to put it in the corner sometimes and go, I'm not going to beat myself today. And I remember at the time thinking, not me, I'm going to be great. Like, it's going to be fine. And it was, only afterwards, probably a year down the line, that I thought, my God, that stick comes out quite regularly. And so it's weird actually, because now I'm talking about it, I can picture it. I had like a visual that I created in my head and I can now see it in the corner of the room.
Describe it to us. What can you see?
It's like a shepherd's staff. It's really weird. But it's a bit gnarly. It's really long. It's probably like my height, which is a bit scary. But I think that it's probably grown over the years, like, as I've just added trauma to it. But now I think all of those things played a part in my journey as a mum, and they've probably made me stronger and better. I mean, certainly they've made me, when I look back retrospectively, figure out what the consequences of not being congruent with how I want to behave and how I want to show up is. And it's great to take advice and love from other people, but you don't need to accept their judgment. And that's a tough lesson to learn.
I might not be able to ask this question, and you probably might not be able to answer it because it's not even clear in my mind. But I'm wondering, at that time when Charlie was young, how that kind of manifested itself. So you've got you've got the external pressure, you've got the behaviour that's incongruent. Where does it bubble out? How does it bubble out, the incongruence?
Is this where we come to the breakdown?
I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, probably. Charlie came along at a time in my life where I was still on a journey to try and prove to the world that I was good enough.
Okay, what does that mean practically? What are you doing?
Practically, I'm pushing for the biggest thing in my career I can get to. I am trying to be all things to all people. I don't show vulnerability or weakness. If somebody asks me to do something, the attitude is 100%. I'll figure it out later. I'm working full time. I'm a new mum. I'm studying for a degree. I am doing 2 voluntary roles. I'm still trying to be everybody's friend and go for dinner and see people and spend time with family. And there's absolutely zero time carved out for me. And I think what I felt like me time at the time was cleaning the house. And I was obsessive about cleanliness, and it's not clinical. It's not like OCD. I'd never claim that, but it was almost a bit of an obsession that, and I used to be like, oh, I love cleaning. I love it. But I think it's because it was the one thing I felt completely and utterly in control with. And now that I've dealt with my demons, I'm like, oh, cleaning. Like, do I have to really? Like, I buy the cleaning products that make it feel special just to try and convince myself to do it. But then I think that's the symptoms of that were just not stopping to draw breath as much as I possibly could. And of course that's not sustainable, and I broke. You want to know how I broke?
I didn't ask a question.
Go on, you asked the question.
I was actually going to ask, to start with, sort of taking a step back from there, how you think that those pressures or expectations that you were putting on yourself were shaped. Where did that drive come from? That sort of productivity, success?
I think they've always been there from very early on. Very, very early on. My dad was in the military. My mum's ex-military. I have to say that because if she listens to this, she'll tell me off for not saying. She's a veteran too. And she's wonderful. Both my parents are amazing. But dad was away a lot, and I was a daddy's girl. And I think I was the natural person who tried to get attention because I needed validated somehow. And I don't really know where that came from. Dad was away. Mum was working really hard to hold everything together. We were abroad, so she didn't have support structures around her. And so she probably didn't have... She was probably really stretched for time. And I probably just made things terrible by my need for attention constantly. But I think as well, I'm being really honest here, my sister is also an amazing woman. She's one of my role models and I adore her now. But she was always the good child. She was always the well-behaved one. She was always the academic one. She was always clever and could do everything. And I think I didn't feel good enough because things were more difficult for me. I was dyslexic, but it wasn't diagnosed. So my school report said things like Laura's lazy and she's easily distracted. And I think that laziness thing like wormed its way into... I was going to say my head, but I think it also got into my heart and my gut and every fibre of me. And I felt guilty if I wasn't doing the best I could do all the time. And I think being dyslexic and not having it diagnosed, I had to work so hard that just became a normal, I think. So I just expected for things to be difficult.
And when you describe yourself as seeking attention, what does that mean?
It means doing things I knew would get me into trouble. And my dad was like military police, so it was always going to cause friction. Getting things that got me into trouble. I knew if I like pinched something out my sister's room, I'd get in trouble for it. You know, but there was never the thing in me that went, you probably shouldn't do that thing. The voice was always, you should definitely do that thing. You might get away with it this time. Like, and, you know, I was always part of the drama club. I had no real confidence, but I portrayed confidence. So I was always the leading character in school plays. And even though I was desperately unsure of who I was as a person, we moved a lot as well as kids. And so I was always having to make new friends and starting new schools and trying to prove that I was worthy of friendship or and so I think it's probably just... Yeah, I think it just manifested in just trying to get people's attention so that I had friends, felt like I was seen. I don't think I fully even really understand it now, because I don't feel like I missed anything at home. Like, it wasn't like my parents were absent or kind of dad was away working a lot, but I was never lacking love and attention. So I still don't really understand it. What's frightening now for me is I see some of the traits in my son where it's like, you'll say a joke and he'll laugh, but then over laugh. Like, because he knows that if you've laughed at him, I know all kids do a little bit of that, but I think because I recognise that in me as something that led or fed into a real insecurity, I'm like, okay, always making sure I tell him that you're enough just the way you are, and you don't have to go that extra step to get my attention. Like, I'm watching, I'm looking, I'm proud of who you are, like on the inside. And my parents always tell me that they're proud of me now. They probably did then. I don't think I really remember, although it was the 80s, like it probably wasn't done as much then. Giving away my age now.
Walk us forward then from that moment to the kind of breakdown moment.
Okay. The breakdown moment came, Charlie was a few years old. I was working, I was the chief exec of a charity, feeling lots of pressure for lots of different reasons. And my relationship broke down at home. And so I was, that's when we both became kind of single parent households. And that was tough enough, having the balance. So they say like the most stressful things you can do are like, move house and job and all this sort of stuff. And I feel like I did all of it pretty much at the same time. All of my friends now say they were talking to each other behind my back, and they were going, every time they spoke to me, they'd be like, how are you doing? I'd be, yeah, I'm great, I'm fine. Move's done, this is sorted, that's settled. And they were like, but how are you feeling? And I'd be like, no, I'm feeling fine. And they were all like, it's coming, she's gonna go at some point. I just never saw it. And then I just compartmentalized everything and just shut everything down. I was working more. When my son wasn't with me, I was just hell for leather for work and doing things. Work was its own challenge at the time for lots of different reasons. And then I got up one morning, went to work. My son, weirdly, was supposed to be with me that night, but he was staying with my parents instead. And I got up that morning and I went to work, and I was fine. And in fact, I'd moved office furniture and stuff during the day. So I was fine. And then at about 3:00 in the afternoon, I felt like my skin was crawling, like it was moving on my body. And I got myself home, and I don't remember a great deal after that. A friend of mine came round. She remembers putting me in the bath and getting me out the bath. And then I remember waking up at about 1:00 in the morning, and I thought, I think I'm dying. And I honestly don't know, but I wasn't in pain. I wasn't, like, it was really weird. I just knew something wasn't right. So I had that debate, like, do I just go back to sleep or do I phone the hospital? So I phoned the out of hours thing, whatever you call it. And it was only when I was on the phone to them, I remember I started to cry, and the doctor said to me, you need to pick a problem for us to admit you. And I said to them, my stomach hurts. It was the first time I think I'd noticed that my stomach hurt. Anyway, long story short, they admitted me into hospital, and I had pancreatitis. And I'd known what it was because my mum had had it years before, and she'd been really poorly with it. But I'll never forget, they said to me that the normal levels of this particular chemical in your blood is between like 20 and 100 or something. And my levels when they tested me, I was 1,902. And the doctor came in and he had a conversation with us about, they didn't know whether it was going to be the surgical ward or whether it was going to be intensive care that I was going to go to. At that point, my friend turned to me and she was like, I think we need to call your parents now and tell your mum and dad what's going on. And so I was really ill. And I think I was so busy going, haven't got time to be ill, haven't got time for this, haven't got time for that. All these niggly little symptoms I just ignored. And then all of a sudden it was like my body went, do you know what? If you're not going to listen, I'll put you down.
Stop you.
And it did. I mean, I didn't work it took me 3 months before I had my surgery. And then, so I had my gallbladder removed. And then it took me, I got the flu straight after my surgery. So I burst all my stitches and, got infections. And it was 3 or 4 months before I was back at work. And by that point, I'd completely lost all confidence in myself. I would try to walk into the building and I'd be an absolute wreck. I didn't trust that I could make decisions anymore. It was like everything just fell out. All the false confidence that I'd been carrying for ages. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I've got nothing left. I was so empty and I was heartbroken. And I realized how much I'd given away to things that maybe weren't the important things. And I remember one night because I had to move in with my mum and dad the whole time because I couldn't do anything for myself. And I remember lying in bed and Charlie was still little. He was maybe 3, 4, might have been 4. And I remember waking up in the night and crying and I couldn't get out of bed to go and see him. So I laid there in bed hearing my mum and dad tend to him. And I couldn't get up and do it. I couldn't get up and see him. And I just thought, I think that was the point for me where I thought, I can't give everything to everybody else anymore. I've got this little human being who needs me to be the very best version of me. And that was kind of where it all changed, where I just went, no, I'm getting off now. Getting off the bus now. I'm done.
Just a quick pause. At Reflective Rebels, I'm on a mission to spread joy. I create these podcast conversations because I think we're all hungry for something real. Not advice, not quick fixes, just honest human stories that remind us we're not alone in the mess. If this conversation is making you feel something, would you help me grow the rebellion and share it with just one person who might need to hear it? Maybe someone who's also tired of pretending everything's fine. Because every person who finds these stories makes this little rebellion against perfectionism and exhaustion a little bit stronger. Back to our conversation. Thank you for sharing that. It's really amazing of you actually to share that story. Because they're the things that people don't talk about, which is why I started this in the first place. As it actually is painful and awful, but not uncommon.
I think for me, that's the reason I talk about it. It's not because I'm, having said all the stuff before about wanting attention. It's genuinely not about that. It's now about, I genuinely don't want anybody else to ever have to feel the way that I felt.
Yeah.
Like it's such a brutal thing to put yourself through and actually really unnecessary. And yet we still seem to have this massive societal issue around bravado, maybe? And that lack of vulnerability and seeing vulnerability as a weakness. And actually vulnerability is so beautiful and brings so much strength. There's a lovely, I can't remember the exact quote here and I'm going to totally butcher it. But Brené Brown talks about courage and vulnerability being the same, one and the same. And I just think that's so impactful because it's so true. She gives this great example of, back in Roman times, the gladiators go into the ring and, they are so vulnerable because they're wearing like a pair of metal pants and they're holding the sword and they've got to take on, whatever horrible animal's been picked for them to fight today or other person. And so we look at that kind of person, God, they're so courageous. But actually, they are at their most vulnerable when they're at their most courageous. And so actually, when we're talking about being really strong, if we're not in a vulnerable space, if we're not opening that vulnerable bit, there is no way that we're being genuinely true to ourselves or congruent with who we have the potential to be.
No. And you talked as well about sort of compartmentalizing and sort of shutting things down. If we're not being vulnerable, yes, we're trying to protect ourselves from the horrible stuff, but we're also cutting ourselves off from the wonderful, amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Because love and joy and all those things are vulnerable too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think even the little things, there's other times where you want to share sadness and emotion. I'll never forget my mum saying to me once that I was like, and a friend actually, I've had it from a few sources in the past who've said to me, oh, you're like an ice queen. Like, it's just like nothing bothers you. And I'm like, how awful to be looked at like somebody who doesn't experience emotion, and how intimidating is that to try and sit and have a conversation with somebody who gives you nothing back. And what was really stark for me is once I'd had my breakdown and I allowed the emotion back in, I would get really emotional at adverts and, memorial services and all the stuff that people normally get emotional about. And people would be like, they'd kind of look at me. I remember being at a remembrance service once and absolutely breaking my heart and sobbing. And my mum looked at me as if to say, like, what has happened? Like, what is going on here? But now that's common for me. I think I kind of have my moments, and I'm the more vulnerable, the more, that's not English, the most vulnerable I have ever been. And I feel at my very, very, very strongest as well.
But I don't know if this is your experience, but it's scary too.
Oh, really scary. Really scary. Yeah. Especially when it's people hang on a minute. My brain's doing this thing where it's correcting me like mid-sentence. I was going to say, especially when it's with people you don't know. But actually, I think it's the other way around.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's actually more vulnerable to be, or more scary to be vulnerable with the people that you're closest with, I think. Isn't that interesting? And I wonder why when, these are the people that we choose as our spouses, our lovers, we don't choose our family, but the people who we should be able to open up more to, we still have that, like, I need to be strong for the people around me thing. This year, actually, I've been more vulnerable with my family than ever before. We've had a relatively challenging year this year. And it's been really lovely, actually, being able to open up to my parents and stuff and go, do you know what? Sometimes I think at the age I am, I should have my stuff together. Like I should have it all sorted out. I shouldn't be having the dramas anymore. I should be over it. And, but there was something quite nice and accepting about being able to go, do you know what? I'm a hot mess right now. And the family should just go, okay, like we see you and, we'll support you and we love you still. And that's really special. And I think I found a new level of connection in my family this year that was always there, but I maybe just hadn't explored it as much. And I think it gives other people around you, gives them permission to say, do you know what, I'm also not okay. And I think that's the best gift that you can give somebody, is creating a space for them to say, I'm not all right and I need someone to wrap their arms around me and pick me up off the floor.
Yeah. I think it's like you said earlier, if we're all performing, all following this script and no one ever breaks the script, we're all just going to carry on in this doolally world that's a play.
Yeah. And I think that's the lovely thing about being able to come and talk about it. You know, we talk a lot about work and life, and we have those really superficial, hiya, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm great,
Are you
thanks.
busy?
Yeah. Are you busy? Did you have a nice summer?
Yeah.
Oh, the weather's looking like, we all
it's autumn, the days are getting shorter.
Yeah, we all talk about that stuff all the time. And the thing is, though, that even when we do, you know, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm fine. But I think this is why it's really important to normalize being able to say, I'm not okay, I'm struggling, I'm, today feels tough, or, I'm struggling at work, or, things are difficult at home, or, whatever that might be. We've got indoctrinated into this world of perfection. You'll see it all the time on social media. But actually, the people I'm attracted to on social media in terms of accounts that I follow and stuff now are people who talk about being vulnerable and who are prepared to say, I am not okay. And it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. And it doesn't mean I'm about to collapse. And it doesn't mean everything is going to end here. It just means that I am not okay. And it's all right to not be so okay. And it doesn't matter to me that you're not okay, because I can help pick that up.
Let's come back to the story then, if we can, because I think it'd be really useful to explore, I haven't got the right language, but how you rebuilt.
Okay.
From that moment where you were there. How'd you rebuild from that into where you are now?
I had already had a brilliant mentor, and I'd learned a lot of coaching practices through a brilliant NLP practitioner who, and I'd done a couple of qualifications in NLP with her, and I was so lacking in who I was. I think that was the big point for me. I feel like I'd lost my identity. And I was a mum, and I was a CEO, and I was this, and I was that, and I was the other. But when you took all of that stuff away, I was like, well, I don't know who I am at the center of all this. And my work was such a big point in that. I'd spent so long proving that I was going to be good enough that when I didn't have work to rely on for 4 months because I was laid doing nothing because I couldn't do anything else, I was like, well, what am I? I am not the primary carer for my son because I'm not well enough now. I need help for that. I'm not at work, so I'm not that. I'm not studying because I'm not well enough, so I'm not that. So kind of what's left? So I kind of went back to the training manuals, and I started working through old exercises, trying to find something that was me. And I had to learn to get comfortable with my own company, which is something I had never enjoyed. Now I love alone time, but I never did before. And I kind of just it was like somebody had got 5 different jigsaws and opened the boxes and just thrown the pieces all over a room. And I kind of had to go around one by one and go, is that one of my pieces? Nope, that's not me. Is that one of my pieces? Oh yeah, that one belongs with me. But then it was like the pieces were interchangeable, so I kind of had to choose where they went back together. Does that make sense? I'm quite visual. There's a lot of imagery going on in my head here, which I'm wondering if that's translating.
What's the emotional side of that? What's happening emotionally?
Emotionally, I think to begin with, when the jigsaws get thrown around, there's a real emptiness, which is all of a sudden the space where I thought my jigsaw was has gone, and I don't ever know if I'm going to find the pieces again. And so that's also fear is, well, if I'm not good enough for this stuff, what's ever going to make me good enough again? So there's like the fear of the unknowing. There's the emptiness of, and I think that's an emotional emptiness as well at that stage, which was like through exhaustion and everything as well. Like I just don't, I'm a bit numb to everything. And then slowly, as I started putting the pieces back in, I remember I went to do admin for a charity. So I went from chief exec to admin because that's all I trusted myself to do. And I remember when I first put like that first piece in, okay, well, I'm capable of admin. And I was like, this is great. I found something that's okay, something I'm good at, Kim. And then slowly, as I was like picking up other pieces, and I was like, well, am I good at this bit? No, not that bit. I don't like that bit. That doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel congruent. And then I was like, oh, maybe there's something else that's more than just doing admin that I'm also good at. And then that slowly helped me piece the bits back in. And then there was the kind of joy that came with that, which was, oh, I found a new piece and that feels good. And then just building the jigsaw and building really good boundaries around the pieces that needed to be protected. So I made some really strong decisions then about the way I wanted relationships to look like moving forward, the way I wanted to work moving forwards, the way that I wanted to be available to pick my son up from schools on certain days. So I refer to them now as my non-negotiables.
Yeah.
So I want to work, live and play with people whose values align with mine, who and who bring an element of love and joy and enrichment to my life, rather than just feeling like I'm always giving and not bringing anything back.
Can I bring you back to the jigsaw and gently challenge you?
Yeah, go.
Because I feel there's a bit missing.
Okay.
Because when you were talking about the jigsaw, you were still saying, and you were sort of picking up the pieces and saying, am I good at? Which was still that sort of success-driven approach.
Yeah.
Because you asked the question, who am I?
Yeah.
So can you answer the question, who are you? It's a horrible question.
Do you know what? I don't feel like it's a horrible question. I'm not sure I can eloquently
you can
do
messily
it,
answer.
But I feel it. I can feel...
Tell us your feelings.
Okay. So, oh, Ben, it's an awful question. Okay, no, it's not. So who am I? I am, first and forward, I am Laura. Before I'm anything else, I'm Laura. And what that means is I am vulnerable. I am flawed. I am a little bit quirky. I am beautifully unique the same way everybody else is. And I don't need to be validated or compared to anybody else because I'm uncomparable. Okay. And that's not because I'm special. It's because I'm just the same as everybody else. And there is something about being really humble in that gives me permission to continue to learn about myself. So I don't have all the answers in that yet, but Laura is somebody who tries to be kind and compassionate, non-judgmental, who works hard because she's still driven, but not hard because I'm trying to make my life harder than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Second to that, I'm a mum. So, and I don't want it to seem awful that I put being a mum after being Laura, but for me, that's really important that I prioritize myself first, because I need to be the best and the wellest version of me in order to be able to show up for Charlie. I've learned that the hard way. So he then comes next, and being a mum and a stepmom is really important, because I get to now teach them how to find the jigsaw for themselves and hopefully help them avoid a little bit of the heartache along the way. And then wider than that, I am somebody who is here to try and leave every space I'm in slightly better than when I found it. And it's not my responsibility to change the world. It's not my responsibility to change everybody. But by showing up with behaviors that are congruent with my values, I hope to be able to influence other people to show up in a way that is authentic and congruent for them. So that's kind of what the jigsaw looks like. The jigsaw is a picture of me with all these different elements around me, but they're all interconnected, and it's lovely and bright and colourful.
Sounds amazing. Can I weave us back to the beginning then?
Of course.
Just pull that thread back in of faith, and where faith fit into that journey and the time scale of that. I suppose, this podcast is about turning points, life, messiness, shit, but it's also about joy and meaning. So what faith and joy mean to you now, and how the faith kind of weaved back in?
The joy bit's probably easier to weave in. The faith thing is much more recent. The finding of faith. The journey to finding me again was probably a bit less connected with my faith, although in the last couple of years it's been a huge jigsaw piece that's gone in. So that has been, it almost feels like a foundation. Actually, do you know what it now feels like? It's like I've got the jigsaw, but I put it on a bit of cardboard. And the bit of cardboard that sits underneath it is the bit that underpins the whole thing and kind of keeps all the pieces safely together. That's how I would define the faith element of it now. But it's like I built the jigsaw and then I slipped the bit of cardboard in underneath to kind of keep it safe and keep it secure. So that's maybe how the faith bit comes in. Although the faith bit is quite intrinsically linked with the joy now, because there's a lot of negativity associated with religion, right? I know there is. I'm not daft. And sometimes I get a little bit frustrated because Catholicism in particular can be a little bit macabre sometimes. And I look at other churches where they're clapping their hands and properly praising the Lord, and I feel a little bit jealous of that sometimes. I kind of wish that was my space. Sometimes I feel like Catholicism can be a little bit dour. But the way it brings joy into my life now is I have a community, I have friends in faith, I have business associates who are in faith who I can pray with, and I can be grateful for life, and now, I see the way that my faith plays a part in every day. So even when I'm really worrying about something, I've learned to be able to offer that worry up. And I feel that it's almost like I box it up and I give it away. And I just feel this kind of peace and joy that fills the space. Really don't think I'm explaining that particularly well, but it's hard to be able to quantify that. It is so much more qualitative than quantitative, the way that makes me feel. The joy bit on the journey comes from after my breakdown, and I kind of had to peel everything back. I'd been so focused on being the best at whatever that looked like that I'd kind of forgotten a bit about the joy bit. And the joy bit for me is really, really simple. I don't need expensive nights out and big holidays and stuff like that. None of that. Yeah, it's nice, but none of it like really, in fact, it'd probably stress me out more having to get organized and stuff for it. But now it's more about those little moments, the little memories, knowing that I've put my phone down and like I play on the PlayStation with my son. I mean, I'm rubbish, but he loves that when we just sit down and I've got no other distractions. I can just be in that moment with him, or we sit reading a book and I'm watching him read the book. I'm not also scrolling through my phone. I can see how he loves and responds to the fact that mum is just there for him in that moment. How when I'm with my friends, I've never taken less photographs in my whole life than I am at this stage now, because I'm in the moment living something. I'm not watching it through a camera lens. So often I'm like, oh, I wish I'd got a photograph of that for kind of memory now. But it doesn't even kind of enter my head because I'm like, I don't feel the need to look at it through the lens. And you know that horrible thing that Facebook does now where it brings back your memories?
Yeah.
Have you ever, so last year I decided to do a cull of my memories. So every day I made a point of going in and looking at the memories, and I deleted all the stuff I didn't want to see. And some of the stuff I was posting online was just ridiculous. You know, like, just woke up, it's raining. Like, why? Why did you feel the need to put that out? And I think I was just craving connection.
I think we're lonely.
Yeah, really lonely. And now I'm not lonely. Even when I'm alone, I don't feel lonely. Part of that comes from my faith, but part of that comes from being really secure in the relationships around me as well. So when my partner's traveling, I don't feel alone because he's coming home.
Yeah.
And I still feel connected to him even when he's not there. It's the same with my family. My sister works like on the other side of the world. She's hundreds and hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles away. And we don't talk as often as we probably should. But she's one of my best friends. I love her and feel incredibly connected to her through a quietness that exists between us sometimes. And I think that I've learnt the joy in the quietness, the joy in the little things, and not having to have that joy validated by other people. Like, I'm joyful because I feel the joy. I'm not joyful because you've decided this isn't a joyful situation for me. And that kind of takes a bit of wrapping your head around. You've got to challenge yourself often. How am I feeling about this in the moment? So I think now for me, the joy comes through those teeny tiny moments and just being able to, I was about to say share them with other people, but sometimes that's not even it. I think now I'm reluctant that I'm going to come across like an absolute narcissist here and saying like it's all about me, and that's not it. But it's almost like it's like the whole charity starts at home thing. Like, you know, you've got to give the love and care and attention to yourself, because, you know, once my cup's empty, I'm not pouring anything into yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if you could offer a prayer for that new mum.
Yeah.
That mum who's felt the weight of those expectations. What you might pray?
I would say, I was trying to think of some like
proper prayer words.
Yeah, proper prayer words. But you know what? I'm just going to go with what my heart says here. So I would say, Heavenly Father, I ask you to watch over this new mum and all of her support mechanism in the raising of this child. watch over them, bless them, care for them, allow them to find their own flow and rhythm in life, and to know that they are always supported and that they are good enough. Amen.
That feels like a place to end, but it's not the end of the story. So I always like to ask, what's next? What's next for you?
What's next for me is a wedding. I'm getting married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We are bringing our two families together.
Yeah.
Which is really special. And I'm not a big grand plans person anymore. I'm very much a fluid kind of, let's see where this takes us. But I'm really content and I'm really happy. And there's a million things I would change, but at the same time, it'll come to me when it's the right time. I'm a great believer in that. And sometimes we have to experience things that are difficult in order to be able to support and help other people. So right now, in terms of what's next, the only big thing I can think of is kind of moving towards the wedding and then just continuing to work on being the best version of me and trying to encourage other people to find that version of themselves too.
Hopefully, a little part of that might be sharing your story today.
Thank you.
And people might listen and feel inspired.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. If this conversation stirred something in you, I hope you feel you're not alone. Sometimes hearing someone else's story can help us see our own more clearly. Please support the telling of these stories by following or subscribing wherever you're listening to your podcasts. You can visit reflectiverebels.co.uk/newsletter to sign up for honest insights, podcast updates, and events for exhausted humans. And if you're ready for change in your own story, if you want to move from coping to clarity, from performing to living, then drop me an email about coaching. Because we're done pretending everything's fine. We want more than coping. We want a life that feels like ours. Your story isn't over yet. I'm Ben, and this has been We're Done Pretending, a Reflective Rebels podcast.